All right, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. This is SNL, a historical discussion with Jeff and Mike, or Mike and Jeff, whoever's speaking. And the last time we spoke, it was a 33-minute discussion, and I've attempted to break it down, and then I was able to find that eventually we were able to submit all 33 minutes, so I don't know what we're going to do, if we're going to break that down or not. But what we did, we started the discussion of everything leading up to Saturday Night Live.
To the first episode.
We didn't discuss the first episode. We're not even there yet discussing the first episode. We want to continue on, and we thought today that we would discuss the origins of the Not Ready for Primetime players.
Right, each character. Where did they come from? What happened to them after they left the show? And just give a history of the origin of each of the characters. The 9 characters, because there were 9 of them.
And there's going to be a little bit different. Jeff had 4, I had 5, and I concentrated on anything prior to Saturday Night Live, and then I just came up with some of what I felt like were the more memorable characters that they have played. Yeah. I didn't cover anything after that, and Jeff did. So you're going to see some differences between us. But, we're learning about everything of what we want to post here, whether it's a podcast or YouTube or both. But
so we're going to discuss individual characters of the original 9, 2 of which you probably don't know much about, which was Mr. Coe and Mr. O'Donohue. But we'll get into those a little bit. But Mike, if you want to get started, Mike had 5 of the main characters, and I had 4 of them. So who are you going to start with today, Mike?
I'm going to start off today with Chevy Chase. Chevy was first brought on not as a cast member, but he was first brought on as a writer, and we found there's about at least 3 of the Not Ready for Primetime players, and we talk about that there are 9 original Not Ready for Primetime players. You SNL true believers or enthusiasts, and you will know that, but there's a lot of people that did not realize that there were 9. So going back to Chevy Chase, he was originally hired as a writer, and going into it, he did do some acting. He was in an underground comedy ensemble called Channel 1. Later on, Channel 1 made a movie called The Groove Tube. He also was a writer on not the original Smothers Brothers show, but they tried to make a comeback in 1975, and he was a writer with that group. What else? He was with the National Lampoon Radio Hour. I'm not sure if he was a writer on that or not, probably. Mm-hmm. But he was also a cast member, a performer, and that led to the Lemmings show, which was kind of like a Woodstock about the youth culture for that. And there was a lot of people in that from Saturday Night Live. There was John Belushi, there was Bill Murray. But that's for Chevy Chase. He started off as a writer, but the whole time it seemed like as they were leading up to the show, from my readings, he was really auditioning for Lorne Michaels to eventually cast him on the show as a performer.
I see.
He eventually made it. He used the fall quite a bit. Wherever they were going out in lunch or whatever, he would use the fall that we've seen so many times on Saturday Night Live. Another thing that allowed him to leave was, since he was a writer, he signed a 1-year contract. The performers were required or asked to sign a 5-year contract or a 4 or 5-year contract. He didn't have to. He was already under contract as 1 year, so he's like, he already planned this to be a one-and-out type deal for him.
Oh, I see. And it wasn't the falls that he did. At the end of the day, they ended up hurting his back and caused him some medical problems down the road, from what I understand.
Yes, about a year ago, 6 months ago, I listened to Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, The Amazing Colossal whatever of Gilbert Gottfried, and he has on Dick Van Dyke. And Dick, they talked about the falls that he did, and then they were talking about the falls that Chevy Chase did, and he said, Dick Van Dyke said he really wanted to call Chevy Chase and tell him that his falls, he was going to hurt himself. He just wasn't doing it in a safe manner, but he felt like it was going to be stepping on Chevy's toes, so he didn't reach out to him.
Gotcha. Anyhow, so he was there a year.
Yeah,
Their year.
1 year and 1 year and out, and for a lot of them, they were very jealous of him. But at the same time, I think it was a breath of fresh air to get rid of him.
Right, because who came in after him?
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray, right? Bill Murray. All right. So that's Chevy. The first person cast in the show was
Gilda
Radner, right? And that's the person I'd like to talk about now. Is Gilda Radner. She was the first person actually to be official cast member of Saturday Night Live, and she has quite a history. She was born in Detroit, Michigan, and she's actually the second cousin to Steve Ballmer, who is the old CEO of Microsoft, and he's a multi-billionaire. He is the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. When she was young, she grew up in a rather well-to-do family. Her father was, I believe, in the insurance business. Died when she was in her teenage years, I believe. But she went to a high school, a University of Liggett School in Detroit, which is a well-known high school. And then she attended the University of Michigan. She dropped out during her senior year because she became involved with a sculptor boyfriend who moved her up to Toronto, Canada, which was important because she became involved in a play called Godspell while she was up in Toronto. And in that play was a couple of gentlemen that you've heard of named Eugene Levy and Martin Short, and a musician named Paul Schaefer. And she became involved with those gentlemen. And from there, they joined Second City in Toronto. And that got her into the comedy world. Now, she's always an entertainer. And if you've seen her documentary that they had, I believe, on Netflix, she was always a performer. She was always dancing around. She was always, felt like she was always in the limelight. When she was younger, she had some problems with her weight, which would later on culminate into her having an eating disorder when she became older. And she constantly fought with her weight from the time she was on Saturday Night Live all the way through the time of her death. She joined Second City in Toronto, and then in 1974 and 1975, before she joined Saturday Night Live, she too went on to the National Lampoon's Radio Hour, which was a nationally syndicated radio show. I believe they said they had over 600 stations that used to listen to that. And from there, she met John Belushi, Bill Murray, and Richard Belzer, who also is now working on one of those TV shows, cop TV shows. But he was a comedian first. Gilda became the first person that Lorne Michaels cast for Saturday Night Live. And the great characters that she had while she was at Saturday Night Live: Barbara Wawa. She also did Rosanna Dana. She was also the old lady, Emily Latilla, who had that hearing problem. And she'd always like misunderstand what Jane Curtin would tell her. Never mind. And then she gives this long litany of why she was upset about what was the one you said yesterday?
Busting school children.
Busting school children instead of busing school children. And she'd go in this whole litany of how busting school children were wrong. And then Jane Curtin would say, it's not busting school children, it's busing school children. And she'd go, oh, never mind. And then she'd go out. And then she also had the Lisa Lubner with Lisa and Todd, Bill Murray, right?
Lisa.
And then she played Judy Miller, the little Judy Miller show, where she would jump up on the bed and slam against the wall.
I couldn't remember her name.
Yeah, Judy Miller, and she would slam herself against the wall, and it was just a great characters, and so her characters were truly memorable. After she left Saturday Night Live, she didn't do very much in the way of comedy. She had a Broadway show called Gilda Live on Broadway, which they also, I think, made into a movie. And then she ended up marrying G.E. Smith, who was the band leader for Saturday Night Live for several years. That marriage lasted a couple of years, and they divorced in 1982. And then she ended up dating a litany of men. I think she had some insecurities with men. Someone said one time that she didn't like watching Ghostbusters because she dated all three of the leading men. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis.
Did someone say that she was basically looking for her father?
Basically,
which is kind of a common
I think
thing.
so, yeah. And she was close to her father, and when he died when she was young, she was somebody who was very clingy, I think, in a relationship. We were talking about that earlier today. And after she married G.E. Smith, and she had dated numerous groups of men, and I don't think it was a sexual type of attraction. I think it was just a very emotional attraction she had in men. And then she was making the movie Hanky Panky, and in strolled the man who would become the love of her life, which was Gene Wilder. And it was an instant attraction, and her and Gene ended up getting married, I believe, in 1984. and it was a very passionate relationship, and I believe it was the love of both of their lives. And in 1985, they were making the Hanky Panky, and she became very fatigued, very tired, and she went to the doctors, and over a 10-month period they tried to figure out what was wrong with her. They couldn't figure out what was wrong, and finally in 1986, in October 1986, she got the diagnosis that she had stage 4 ovarian cancer. And for 3 years she fought this disease, and in 1989, October of 1989, she passed away. And what was sad about this on May 20th, 1989, she had passed away. She had been in remission for a while, and everybody thought she was doing rather well. Then suddenly on May 20th, 1989, she passed away. And what was strange about that happened to be a Saturday night. Steve Martin was hosting Saturday Night Live that night, and word came down that Gilda had passed away. And Steve Martin had planned a monologue that night, and he got word that she had passed away, and he was shocked because he thought she had been doing well. So Steve Martin's planned opening monologue was scrapped, and in its place, a visibly upset Steve Martin introduced a video clip of a 1978 sketch in which he and Radner had parodied Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse in a well-known dance routine from The Bandwagon, which was a 1953 movie, where they had imitated a dance routine, which was a beautifully done dance routine that him and Gilda Radner had done. Mm-hmm. And it was based upon a Fred Astaire clip that he had done with Sid Charisse. After the clip, Martin said it reminded him of how great she was and how young he looked. And then he said he missed her, and it ended the introduction. And that's how her life ended. Gene Wilder was by her side, and her life was cut short. And she was, I'm not sure how old she was when she passed away, but she was very young. And it ended
in her 40s, between 42 and 45, I think.
45, yeah. And so that young life led a beautiful soul, and she had a great impact for all the characters that was on Saturday Night Live. Hers was one of the most memorable. So that was Gilda Radner, first person cast on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, and let's go next to Garrett Morris. Garrett was another gentleman that was not ready for primetime player that was originally hired as a writer. Prior to this, he had appeared in a bit part in the movie called The Anderson Tapes. That was in 1971. 1973-74, which I'm going to see if I can find this series. It was a CBS series called Rollout. Also featured in that, not a main character or not a main headliner, was Ed Begley Jr. also in this. So I'm very interested in checking this series out. But then I think what perhaps caught Lorne Michaels' eye was he was in a movie. He was a teacher in this movie called Cooley High, and that was in 1975. So or at least got released in 1975. So right before Saturday Night Live really started. But he was hired as a writer, and there was a lot of difficulty there with the other writers, and I don't know if it had to do with prejudice at the time. I do think that had something to do with it, and I also think it had something. He wasn't a comedy writer; he was a playwright. But so he was brought on board, and after he went to Lorne decided to keep him on as a cast member, and a lot of people, me included, felt like he was kept on as a token at that time, as the token black person, Right. But after Garrett, what'd you have? You had Eddie Murphy, and then after Eddie Murphy, was it Chris Rock? Eventually we've got a lot more diversity, or at least more diversity on Saturday Night Live. But going back to Garrett Morris again, another interesting thing that for this video that I found out was that he was a member of the Harry Belafonte folk singers. They were 11 to 12 singers that was backup to Harry Belafonte. He had appeared in several Broadway musicals, but that's his origin. And the characters that come to mind, there's not a lot, because the baseball player.
Right.
Baseball had been very good to me.
Right.
On Weekend Update about he was the guy that served the headline for people
right.
hard of hearing.
Right.
And but he was complaining that he wasn't getting very many roles. In fact, that led after year 2 or 3. It really led to him with substance abuse because he was around and they weren't using him. They weren't utilizing him. But
which is a shame because I think he would have had the talent to be used in any way they wanted.
Well, we're trying to cut these just a little bit shorter instead of 33 minutes. So we're experimenting with how long we want to do things. So right now we're a little bit over 15 minutes. So we're going to try to cut it here. We're going to be right back if you just click on the next video, or if you want to see us tomorrow. Right. That's it. But we thank you for joining us. And
end of part 1. We'll have part 2 at the next clip.
All right. Have a good time.